Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Jacksonville Tourism Development Authority for our 89th meeting. Welcome to everyone in attendance and those joining us on G10. The first item today is a typical adoption of the agenda. I guess everyone's had a chance to review that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes. Next item on the agenda.
Make approval of the minutes.
And a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved, the agenda is adopted, and we'll move right into our first item, which is our budget amendment for the spending plan modification, and Anthony Prince has got a presentation for us.
Not able to see the presentation, so I'll just have to trust that maybe we go up here. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, good afternoon, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you today on business of the Tourism Development Authority. Item number one is a requested legislative budget amendment and spending plan modification. This is primarily a follow-up to a presentation that we had from our friends at the Carolina Museum of the Marine. That's what CMOTM stands for. And as you recall, during our last meeting in September, they talked about some of their new initiatives, the recent influx of capital that they've received from the state and trying to move forward with construction of a building, and also their request to partner with us this fiscal year to continue their efforts in pursuit of the museum. So at that meeting, the directors all seemed to be in alignment that we wanted to move forward, and directed staff to work with the Museum of the Marine to come up with a written proposal and basically arrange that in a way that works with our funding system. What would be divided up between promotions and what would be allocated to tourism related. So as you see here, this is what the outcome of that plan was. And I won't go through each of the items here, but essentially what it boils down to is $80,000 worth of promotions funding. And again, those are the 1/3 dollars that we're talking about these days. And then $100,000 total to include the $20,000 that was requested for event support. The scope of that work did not fit well within promotions, so we're recommending that come from tourism related. So the budget amendment is a request to appropriate from our promotions fund balance, okay? So this is not money currently appropriated in the budget. This would come from our fund balance, be appropriated to the budget for a total of $80,000 to support the promotions request from the Museum of the Marine. Also, I think we spoke about this with the promotions subcommittee, but not the tourism related. But we find ourselves in a situation where we are completely out of visitors guides. And, you know, that's just one of our primary means of getting our word out. And so the request there is to add $8,000 in fund balance to the budget to print another run of visitor guides. And just for information there, $8,000 isn't the entire cost. We actually split that cost 50-50 with county tourism because it is a joint publication. And just for information, you'll hear this in a few minutes with the audit report, but the current promotions balance, I wanted to give you that as part of the decision-making process. It's about $1.016 million. It's a June 30 number. So again, we're running a healthy balance there, even if you choose to allocate the additional $88,000. So if you see favorably on that, the second part of this request is to amend the spending plan. Of course, the budget is basically how much money is allocated from revenue as well as expenditures, and then the spending plan is how we basically appropriate that money to specific tasks. So the spending plan modification would authorize the $80,000 in promotions funds to the Museum of the Marine, and then the $20,000 in tourism-related funds as well, okay? Now, because there's unassigned revenue in our current budget from tourism-related, we're not going to have to dip into the fund balance. That money is already adopted as part of the budget. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, authorize $8,000 in promotion funds for for printing another run of the visitor guide. So, gentlemen, that's the long and the short of what we're asking for here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. And we also have Ashley here from the Carolina Museum of the Marine, if you have any questions for them as well.
Okay, any questions from the board? We've been through this quite extensively. I think we got a good grip on it. I am curious, how many visitors guides for 16,000?
We quoted to print about 15,000, so about half a month, which should get us through another year, and then we'll work on a redesign next year for the following.
Just a little footnote there, we're taking advantage of some beneficial pricing on paper now. That's going to save us a lot of money, because it's one of those things, it's you know, a supply chain issue. So that's another reason why we didn't defer it till next fiscal year.
Yeah. There's a global paper shortage.
All right, gentlemen, we're ready for a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the budget amendment and the spending plan.
I'll second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we've got that job done. Thank you. Okay, we can move on to presentation items. Our first one is going to be we're going to have a presentation on our annual audit financial report. And please introduce yourself. I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Leanne Bagasala. I'm an audit director at Maldon's and Jenkins. And today I'm going to present to you the fiscal year 2022 financial results. You will see the PowerPoint is very specific to our opinions and our required communications. It doesn't necessarily go over specific financial data in it. But I do believe that y'all are all presented with financial statements. So the few things that I did want to cover is I do want you to know who your engagement team is. This is our first year as your auditor, so I wanted to give you some names to correlate with our audit. I also want to go over your 2 audit opinions. You have an audit opinion at the front of your financial statements, and you also have a compliance report at the back of your financial statements. When I'm going over those opinions, I will touch on some things that kind of let you have an idea of what our scope of our audit, what it does cover and what it does not cover. Also, as part of communication of the audit results, I do have a few things that I'm required to communicate to you, so I will go through those. And then if you have any questions, feel free to, jump in and ask me, as we're going through it or at the end, whatever your preference is. So this slide right here represents who Maldon's and Jenkins are. We have over 100 years in the business. We serve over 650 government clients across our practice. That's about a third of our practice is governmental. So we have a lot of experience across the states. This slide actually tells you that we're in 5 states. We're actually in 6. We just opened up our Raleigh, North Carolina office in October. And I'm actually based out of Winterville, and my in-laws are here in Jacksonville. So very close. I'm actually leaving here and going to help my mother-in-law with some stuff. So we are definitely expanding in North Carolina. We actually just doubled our practice in North Carolina this year. From a perspective of who worked on your engagement, you'll see that at the very bottom of the slide. Your engagement partner was Tim Loynes. He wished that he could be here today, but he actually is on a GASB task force, and he is actually meeting with GASB this week. He's the partner in charge of our North Carolina and South Carolina offices. Then you had Adam Farley. He's the quality review partner. So every engagement that we have goes through a quality review. The first year audit, they do a very in-depth review of the work. He's independent, meaning he does not help at all with the actual work in the audit. He just reviews it. He reviews it from a different perspective. He has no idea what's going on in the audit until he looks at it at the very end. He's just making sure that we're following the standards that we're required to. And then I'm an engagement director, and hopefully next year I'll be the one signing off on your audit opinion. I am capable of signing on the audit opinion, but because of first year audit, we just had very high level up people looking at it just, from the get-go. And we did the same thing on the city's audit. So the first audit opinion I want to go through is the opinion at your front of your financial statements. You received an unmodified opinion, which is a clean audit opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that I can give you that your financial statements are clean from a material perspective. So just so that we're all aware, when we do your financial audit, we do look at internal control structures as part of expressing our opinion, but we are not providing an opinion on the effectiveness of your internal controls. Our audit is conducted in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards and also government auditing standards. Our objective is to provide reasonable assurance, but not absolute assurance, on the basic financial statements, ensuring that they're free of material misstatement. Our responsibility doesn't extend beyond the financial information contained in our report. And overall, just to make sure everyone's aware that authorities management wrote the financial statements and they're ultimately responsible for the financial statements. The last opinion you received is a compliance opinion. A lot of people refer to it as a yellow book opinion. It is over government auditing standards. And essentially, we are reviewing the authority's internal controls for compliance with laws and regulations. Our report isn't intended to provide a comprehensive review of internal controls, and it also doesn't provide a legal determination of your compliance, but our report is in accordance with government auditing standards. So the next couple of slides go over our required communications. The first one is about significant auditing accounting policies. There were no changes in accounting policies this year. They are disclosed in Note 1 of your financial statements, and all of your policies conform with generally accepted accounting principles, and we had no issues with the policies of the authority during our testing. Also, as part of your financial statements, management does make judgments and estimates in your financial statements, so you should be aware of those. Your financial statements do disclose what estimates are in there. From a relationship perspective, we received full cooperation from the authority's management. We had no disagreements with them as part of our auditing process. In order to issue a financial statement, management does have to provide what's called a management representation letter that includes various things about the accuracy of the information that's provided to us. And we received that in order for us to issue our statements. We are not aware of the authority consulting with other accountants, but if there was any significant discussions over new GASBs or anything like that, management is aware they should come to us first for those kinds of things. But there was nothing brought to our attention this year that required significant discussions about, policy changes or anything. There were no unrecorded or past audit adjustments. That means the books and records that we received as part of our audit, when we received those in order to audit, we didn't request any adjustments to be made. So everything that was provided to us is what you see in the financial statements. Your financials do include several disclosures. When we're reviewing disclosures, we ensure that they're neutral, consistent, and that the clarity is there as part of our audit. Basically, the footnotes agree to what we tested. And then also, again, just to make sure that we're on the same page, our financial statements that we provided with our opinion, and our opinion does not extend beyond the financial statements that you have in front of you. And then also just want to make sure everyone knows that Maldon's and Jenkins is independent of the City of Jacksonville and also the Tourism Authority. There are several GASB pronouncements that are coming up in the next few years. These are two that could potentially have an effect on the authority, but I don't believe it's going to be a significant effect. And me and Sabrina were actually talking about, the GASB 96 last week. So she's already working on that, and we'll help her get through that GASB standard. That is applicable for next year. However, I don't think it's going to have any effect on the authority. And there's also some pronouncements coming up. There is a re-examination of the financial reporting model coming up, but we have several years until a final standard is going to be coming out. Also, in several more years, there's a revenue and expense recognition project that's going on that may result in a new GASB. And then the last bullet up here is there's a going concern, uncertainties, and severe financial stress project that's going on. This is where Tim Loynes, your engagement partner, is. He's on the task force for this GASB, and that exposure draft is hoping to come out in 2025. And then just a summary of what we do provide as an additional services. If, anyone at the City of Jacksonville or Jacksonville Tourism Authority needs CPE, we offer that as an additional service. We do multiple trainings throughout the year. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Directors?
No, just a comment. Thank you for getting it done on time.
No problem. It was easy. Everything was very, very clean for us to look through, so we appreciated that too.
We are blessed with a pretty capable accounting department. That's-
Exactly, sir, and that's what I was going to mention. Special thanks to Sabrina and her folks for putting in all the work to get it done.
Mr. Chairman, it'd be appropriate for you to entertain a motion to accept the audit, if that's what.
So moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Okay. So, number 3, I guess we're looking at budget development.
So as we close out fiscal year '21, of course, we're still in, or excuse me, we just closed out fiscal year '22, right? So as we close out fiscal year '22, it's time for us to begin with fiscal year '24. And what I wanted to do is just provide a broad overview of what I thought the best approach would be from a budgeting schedule and get your feedback and authorization to move forward accordingly. As you recall, we adopted a meeting schedule that will run every other month in in calendar year '23. That begins in January, and of course, by then, we're going to have to be engaged in the budgeting process. So in January, the intent is that we would have worked with the subcommittees in December to come up with a revenue projection, which would essentially be the foundation of our budget development. Followed by March, at that time we would conduct a public hearing and do the appropriate notifications, and then in May, adopt the budget and spending plan. As we just mentioned before, those are two separate documents. The budget has to be adopted by June 30, but ideally, we would adopt it in May so that information could then be passed to our finance department and included as part of the city's adopted budget for fiscal '24 as well. And then the spending plan, we would like for that to occur at the same time in May. Doesn't necessarily have to, but given the work that we've done in this fiscal year to set up the budget profile, I don't think there's any reason that we shouldn't expect for it to happen in May. Some of the tasks that we're going to look to the committees for, first of all, is to look over our full year estimates from current year. It was a great learning experience for me and for others as to what the budget looked like, what all the appropriations were. And as we're coming to mid part of the year, we're also finding that, a review of that would be good because we're not necessarily exercising all of the appropriations that were made. And so we may want to comb through and find things that we want to continue to support and others where we might want to reappropriate funds, okay? We're also going to spend time with the promotions committee working on updates to our nonprofit and our event applications. We'll also probably spend time with them going through each one of those applications, not only from a next fiscal year standpoint, but also with an after-action report from each of those, because I have heard from multiple directors that we really need to be more engaged in measuring return on investment as we move forward to make new decisions. So the nonprofit applications and the promotion applications would very likely be a promotion subcommittee task alone, but both committees, I would really like for us to look at the after-action reports from all of our events. Some of those select events we will probably invite to come and actually join us during our regular board meeting and give an update. So we're also going to spend a little bit more time on our visit NC buys. I certainly know a lot more about that process now than I did before, and being able to visit or to attend the conference there's a lot of opportunity there. And so not only are we going to be able to take advantage of those opportunities, but I think we're going to be able to budget in a lot more precise manner as to what we're going to invest in through those Visit NC cooperatives. And unfortunately this year, because of some of the challenges that we ran into with the vendors who provide research data, we weren't really able to move forward with that. The issue there is they want to do a full year contract. They don't want to do a partial year contract. And by the time that we had evaluated all of our options and came up with a recommendation, we were already, a third of the way through the year. So we kind of missed that opportunity. But in this next fiscal year, I would really hope that we could take advantage of that and again, use that as a metric for us to evaluate the performance of our investments. So those are some of the tasks that we hope that the committees would work on. I'm sure that there are others, but really at this point, I'd like to get feedback from the group on the schedule and anything else, any items in particular that you would like to consider as we move through the deliberation process.
Anybody?
And when it comes to the schedule.
Yeah.
So I do hate to say it, but our subcommittees are probably going to have to meet pretty much every month through this process. But I don't expect for it to be an extremely heavy lift. All right?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Deanne?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm actually have some really great news. If you've been out to the Lejeune Memorial Gardens recently, you can see our completed sign. We're very proud of it. The top picture is the actual sign itself with the lettering, and the pictures on the bottom are the side and the back side of the sign itself. Many thanks to our Parks Division. They were able to get us kind of geared up right before the Beirut Memorial. They came out and were able to put all the landscaping out to kind of make this a picture-perfect moment for those that were visiting. But while we were there, we actually had, I think it was someone in media, Alan mentioned, I think you've got a missed opportunity here. And we said, what do you mean? Well, the backside of the sign is actually blank. So I've actually put the words on here. But this is a great opportunity for maybe for us to continue our messaging of bringing people to the gardens. And so things that staff actually were discussing was the possibility of putting additional lettering on the backside of the sign, or maybe during the Veterans Tribute, which we'll hear more about in just a few minutes, that we ended up doing a QR code that you could take a picture and you can have that the audio version of walking through the gardens and listening, maybe a map of what the gardens have to display. So these are just some random ideas that we kind of came up with, the possibility, but we wanted to bring it back before the board to see if that was something that you would like us to kind of dive in a little bit more details to see how much things cost, maybe what ideas that you might have. Again, just wanted to bring this up for discussion. And again, we're very happy and very excited that we finally have a sign for the Lejeune Memorial Gardens.
It's kind of interesting there. So you're talking about utilizing the back of the sign to put additional information?
Yeah, because just to kind of give you a perspective, the bottom right is the back of the sign.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you're leaving the gardens, it's a great opportunity to leave them with, either a lasting message or a moment, or if you wanted to encourage people to take pictures, that's also, and Susan and Teresa can talk about it, but that's also something that would draw them to, when they take pictures, they can do the hashtags and kind of boost our social media presence. But again, these are just ideas that staff came up with, and we're looking for some direction and some thoughts on how the board feels.
Well, we discussed that a little bit at our, session, and it's a great idea. I think we need to think about it and decide what to put on the back, but I think it's a great opportunity and I think we ought to follow up on it. So my druthers would be to, let the staff run with it and see what kind of ideas they come up with in addition to whatever we talk about.
Blank canvas.
Right, blank canvas.
Yeah.
All right, well, we
Some-
will work on some ideas and.
Somewhat facetious, but not really. Opportunity to sell advertising on the back. Somewhat facetious. John's saying no over there.
I was gonna say that'd be-
No,
looks like
I'm
it.
with John
Yeah.
on this one.
I get one idea in 20 years and he doesn't like it.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, one thing that we should certainly celebrate about this is that it's come in on budget.
Right, okay.
You remember the challenge in moving this project forward because of general contractor limitations and funding thresholds. We're right at the threshold, and so Deanna was able to deliver this right on budget.
Yeah.
And with this next move, we're hoping to just maximize the real estate of that sign for the benefit of the gardens.
Well, my first impression is that a great idea, but try to keep flexibility in mind too. That it's something, we can do something now and upgrade it or redo it, or, change it from season to season or year to year.
That's what I was thinking about the advertising. You could change it monthly or so, just keep it fresh.
Right, okay.
Well, I would like to comment on the sign finally being here through no fault of the staff or anybody, but I do want to compliment the staff and hanging in there. I know it's been very frustrating for you, and we all thought we'd have this a year ago, and, but you stood in there like troopers, and I want to compliment the staff for continuing their diligence in making this happen, so thank you.
The other part of it too, sir, is that the Marine Corps was very collaborative as well. And so they helped us find a streamlined way, and Deanna, chime in here if I'm saying something wrong, but they helped us find a streamlined way to make it happen. So rather than being resistant, they were very supportive.
Right.
Looks good.
Thank you. So, okay. Now we're going to move to our committee reports. Now, okay, we've got the written report from the tourism related, and then we're going to have a promotions report. We're going to hear from Teresa today, or?
Yes. Yes, sir. We are going to hear from Teresa here in just a few minutes, but customarily we give
Right.
Director Davis and Director Young an opportunity, if they choose, to tell us what the hotelier market is like these days.
Okay, well, let's go with that then.
Well, I'll start and say, I don't really have a hotelier update other than we have a few properties here in town who have either just finished or are currently undergoing partial renovations for the coming year. So that's always exciting. And the other thing that I would add is the Tourism Advisory Committee and the Hospitality Group are having a joint holiday gathering at the Chamber on Monday, December 5th from 11 to 1. If any other of the directors would be interested in stopping by, that would be nice. And unless Rick has anything to add, I don't have anything specifically market related.
Not really, except I can't wait to do renovations next year.
Are you sure about that? No?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm
good.
very sure.
He wouldn't let you piggyback on his?
No, I get my first quarter next year, that's target.
Well, how's business?
You know, it's actually picking back up currently. A heavy government presence in the market at the moment. Everything indicates that that's going to continue through year end. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, it's had, as we approach the holidays, particularly a few weeks in November, there are little waves to where it'll die down, pick back up. But all in all, the market seems to be very stabilized.
Wonderful. That's what we want to hear.
Yes.
So, anyway, well, thank you for that. Good. Hello.
Good afternoon.
See everybody again. We're going to start with Susan. I'm going to let her give some update on some media that she and I, mostly Susan, has worked on, and some big accomplishments, some great things to report. Oh, no.
Oh, shoot. Oh.
Hear her.
Good, Susan.
That was my fault. That's not the communications team's fault. I'm sorry. I just gave everybody a heart attack. Okay. It's great to be here with you. Thank you to the city comms team for bringing me in. And so let's get started with some good things that have happened on the media and PR side.
Can you see the slides?
We're going to start with some local kinds of things, and then we're going to expand because we've also had some great national coverage in the last few months since we've all been together. Earlier, the Jacksonville Daily News called out our feed as one of the top Instagram feeds in Jacksonville and the surrounding area. What was also very exciting about that is that they called out some other small businesses that are tourism-related businesses, people that we've, shared with, publicized, that kind of thing. And so out of the list of 16, almost half had some kind of tie to tourism-related things. So that was something we were happy about. They also did coverage of our International Food Trail. Then, as we moved further into the year, the national Hampton Hilton Inn brand reached out to Chris at the Hampton Inn, Christopher Davis, and they were talking about who might be the face of the brand for National Waffle Day. And in the end, because of some of the publications that we've been able to place Regina in and some of the amazing things she is doing, she dominated all of the Hilton North America Hampton Inn social feeds on National Waffle Day. This was very, very exciting. We reached out to the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association. We reached out to Visit North Carolina. We reached out to journalists. A lot of people commented and shared and talked about what was happening on these feeds. So we were very happy about that. What was also cool is that the Jacksonville Daily News story about our waffle lady, Regina Trichet, also got picked up by Yahoo News and was a part of their national feed and their national portal, giving us a whole lot more eyeballs. And then our waffle lady was also picked up. We pitched her to Spectrum News. This is the online estimated views. The television reach with Spectrum is statewide, probably around 20,000 estimated views for possibly there. Then it's like, wait, there's more. Regina was asked to demonstrate at the North Carolina State Fair cooking stage. The Department of Agriculture and Got to Be in C programmed an entire stage inside of Dorton Arena in October for a week at the State Fair. Actually, it was 2 weeks. And Regina was one of the people who did demonstrations. She did them at 2 different times. She went to Raleigh. She pulled everything together. Her family went with her. She had, I love the waffle lady embroidered on the back of her coat. And this went crazy on social media. These were some of our highest, most engaging posts. People love hearing about Regina. She's our hometown hero. And of course, that's people in Raleigh, a key feeder market to the coast, learning about Regina and people from all over the state. So that was pretty cool. Then we had two national placements actually with Travel Awaits. About 7 million people come to that site every day or every month. And they did 2 stories. The freelancer who came to see us, Loretta Berry, is a Navy veteran, and she had already done several stories for Travel Awaits for us about 1.5 years ago. So this was a follow-up to give more content on that site to our city and to our area. She did a story on the International Food Trail, and she got to pick which restaurants she went and visited. She did some reels and social media on her own feeds. And then she also did a really nice story on Jacksonville dining. And that included some destinations like Jeff's Burgers, Dogs, and Shakes and Mike's Farm and some of the things like that. So great lift from her. And then moving on, I wanted to give you a little update on what's happened with the Montford Point Marine coverage. This has been very exciting to watch this unfold. So I think the last time we got together, I told you that one of our Montford Point Marine grandchildren, Mallory Berger, found out that her grandfather had been a Montford Point Marine through some media outreach we had done with the Black Southern Belle blog, Michelle Perry. And we connected with her. The city comms team and I got together and we did some cool promotion of Mallory and her childhood friend Reginald Moore, who lives here in North Carolina and is also a retired Marine, they learned that both of their grandfathers had been Montford Point Marines, and they were given the medals in a ceremony in February. Well, both of them kind of made their self-appointed mission to be to find more of these Montford Point Marine families. As you know, there's about it's hard to tell, but out of the 20,000, we've only been able to find or track down about 4,000-ish. And so what they did is they took a proposal to ABC Disney and said, can you help us with this? And ABC Disney said yes. And in August, during the Montford Point Marine Day ceremony, a lot of footage was picked up, a lot of things were shot. They invited a reporter from the National Geographic to come here, a freelance reporter, that kind of thing. And a lot of things happened. During that time, we also worked with the statewide news outlet Spectrum to cover the Montford Point Marine Day ceremony. And not in the recent last few months, the documentary was finished and it is now streaming on Hulu, Disney Plus, and ABC television platforms all over the country. I mean, basically some of those are global. So this is a huge awareness moment. People like Houston Chenal, Mallory and Reginald are both interviewed in the piece. All kinds of people, Joe Geter, the National Montford Point Marine chairman, all kinds of people interviewed, and some of our own Montford Point Marines here in Jacksonville that are still surviving were interviewed. So very, very cool coverage for our area. The story came out in National Geographic. I worked with that freelancer to give her kind of her baseline documents, data, fact sheets, that kind of thing, to start her other extensive research. It was incredible to work with her. When the story posted, their site gets about 9 million visits. Great traction, but here, wait, there's more. Let's go ahead to our next slide. And Rachel Jones, who was the freelancer, she also works for the National Press Foundation, said, I truly don't think I've ever been prouder of a story than I am of this one. And she talked about her work on this piece. Lots of journalists feel that way, but to hear a national freelancer like Rachel say that kind of made me choke up. And then during Veterans Day, the ABC organization made a gigantic push, like the one that just happened, November 11th. We were the lead in the Montford Point Marines were the lead story in the National Geographic email blast that goes out weekly. They were on air, and there was a giant segment about them on Good Morning America's morning show. This is a screen grab of their Instagram post. You'll see Mallory quoted on their Instagram post. And Facebook, Twitter, all of their social platforms focused on what was happening and this awareness of the documentary and the fact that we are trying to find these Montford Point Marines. So I'm looking forward to getting busy with some Montford Point Marine medal ceremonies, and hopefully a lot of those will be right here in Jacksonville. On another level, we had statewide coverage through Cardinal and Pine News and some leisure content on this site. We pitched Lejeune Memorial Gardens when the freelancer reached out and said, what do you have that's free in North Carolina? This ended up being a fabulous story, and I hope you'll actually read the whole thing. I'm making some bucket list things to my list out of this, but we were able to include the Lejeune Memorial Gardens here, and that was a great win. Then we were getting ready and we're thinking, what do we need to do to plant the seeds? What media do we want to host? You know, what should be our plan for Veterans Tribute? And just for those of you who may or may not know, Veterans Tribute NC was a series of events with the main focus being the weekend before and the weekend after Veterans Day. And so we did a paid collaboration with NC Tripping. It's one of the first blogs we hosted, and they've grown to be one of the top North Carolina blogs in the state. And they did a social media execution. You can see 3 of their different Instagram stories for us. And they actually did about 6 of these posts across the period of a day where they were bringing awareness to Veterans Tribute Weekend. Then, after the social media execution, We were the featured event in their November e-blast about what should you do in November. This goes to about 11,000 people, and they have about a 50% open rate, which is crazy, crazy good in this industry to have an open rate like that. And then at no charge, they included information about cool things they'd seen here after they had visited in 2 follow-up e-blasts. They also updated their existing Jacksonville dining post. They loved the International Food Trail. Teresa and I sat across from Carl Hedinger, who's their lead, was the lead person here with us that weekend. And he said, "Geez, Susan, you have introduced me to some good food this weekend." That's always what I want to hear. I mean, they get to eat all over. They also updated their things to do post. They added ELJ Farms to their Holiday Lights post, which also already includes Mike's Farm. So we've got 2 people in that post, and it is heavily, heavily read. They promoted it in their email blast that I received today as well. And then this is kind of cool. As of last week, when I checked the numbers, they launched an Instagram reel about the International Food Trail, one on TikTok and one on Instagram. And last week it had already reached more than 45,000 people. So that's kind of fun. We also did a little bit of work with local media. And as you know now, if local can get picked up on Yahoo, that's pretty cool. This did not happen with this particular story. But when General Stewart did his outstanding address about what does honor really mean on Veterans Day, WNCT came and did an interview with him. They also covered the Disabled Veterans event. The Jacksonville Daily News, in anticipation of our first weekend, promoted our Operation Greenlight campaign. That's not our campaign, that's a national campaign where you use the green light bulbs to give attention to veterans. We also gave out green light bulbs at our booth at Red, White, and Salute, and that was a huge hit. People loved that, and we're just delighted to take home this green light bulb. Some of them had heard about Operation Greenlight, and some had not, but they were thrilled when they were able to participate, and we were able to provide them with that light bulb. And speaking of things coming to light or lighting up, our social media lit up like crazy. This was an email screen grab. This looks at the middle of October to November 8th. And you will see that there are places where we've almost got 600% increases, more than 600%. This is just on Facebook. Our Instagram did very, very good as well. These are strong numbers. This does include some of our paid reach, but a lot of this is also organic. There were posts that we made during the Veterans Tribute and in leading up to it that had 32 likes, 25 shares, all kinds of engagement, commenting, and things like that. In fact, I was talking to somebody with the Visit NC team about one of our executions with them this week, and she had been on our social media page, and she goes, "My gosh, that Veterans Tribute thing blew you guys up." And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am, it did." So anyway, speaking of things that are good and having a lot of impact, Teresa's going to take it from here, and she has a special award to tell you about.
Thank you, Susan. So I just want to bring this up. Our digital work, we remember last year was the first year of the powwow, the Onslow Veterans Pow Wow, and they came to the board and asked for support. And you supported them, and it was a great event. Well, we had such a quick turn, but quickly Weimar, put things into motion and got a campaign up and running. And I did not realize we were submitted for an award, but we were, and our digital work on the powwow won us a national award for in the digital marketing category for innovation and results. The campaign just went crazy. It blew up. But the point is, awards are nice and all that, but this is a true testament to teamwork being done and teamwork coming to fruition. Raquel came with a great event that had fantastic appeal, and the board vetted that and saw that it met the mission, the tourism mission, and awarded them some media money, and then Biomark did our work. So it is truly a team effort. Great teamwork. So I want to give you a quick update on our fall events. It is event season, as you know. The Marine Corps Half Marathon, when I first started working with the organizers of the event, they said if they got to 900, they would be thrilled. for this year, just given the market conditions and everything that was going on. They ended up with just over 1,000 registered runners. So we were really, really thrilled with that. You recall that they do partner with the Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission, and they do a packet pickup off base as well as on base. And over half of the runners pick up their packets off base. So that tells you that there's a lot of people that is convenient, and it gives us some exposure there. They had 50% of the runners were from outside of Onslow County. It equated to estimated 360 overnight stays, and the economic impact is 146,000 plus. So it's a great event. FTM Fashion Week was October, and it was a sold-out event. It was a great event. We had two of our commissioners were there, Cindy Edwards and Mr. Jackson were both there. So you can check with them and get their feedback. 15 designers showcased their designs, and 125 models were on site. One thing I want to note, it just struck me, 3 of the 15 designers were children. One girl was 8, one was 10, and one was 12. The 12-year-old girl is the youngest member of the Chamber of Commerce in Greensboro. It just grabbed me. And these are some of her designs. I mean, this is a testament. This came from, they said, from COVID, from parents supporting their kids who were staying home, and this was their dream, and this is what they wanted to do. And so this girl, this is her story. So what a great place for them to be able to showcase their passion at a sold-out event. The event had 232 overnight stays from various markets all over the country. Here's a couple of shots, runway shots, and our gracious host, Vivica Fox, who truly was a pleasure. Her and her manager both loved being in Jacksonville. They both have military ties, had not been to Jacksonville, and they were... From the moment, they loved the airport, they loved the food they ate, they loved the hospitality they received. So they had a great visit for a couple days. Then moving into October, Oktoberfest was a well-executed event, I thought. Friday night is a night that they've struggled with. A couple of times it was just a pure rain out. It's just been a struggle to get such participation on Friday night like they have on Saturday. So they changed a few things up, and this year Friday night just caught on like wildfire. So it was really successful, which is good to hear. Saturday, they didn't have, if you were there, they didn't have as many vendors as they normally do. I think they were a little late getting there, and so many things happening, vendors, there was so much competition for them. But what I did notice was that a lot of the vendors that were there were truly unique. And I also saw local vendors, local shops represented there. I saw a local boutique that was there, you could buy clothes and try them on and whatever you wanted to do. So there were quite a few vendors that were great. One that stood out to me, this was my favorite because this is a great way to market. Lush Pet Spa is bought dog beer. Good Boy Dog Beer is what it's called. It's not really beer for your dog, but beer sells, right? So it is, actually the ingredients are like chicken stock or beef stock with nutrients and all that. You put it on their food or let them drink it. They were selling the beer, but they did a beer tasting for dogs. People loved it. It was crazy. They were lined up, and the dogs loved it. So I really feel like they had a good event. Veterans Pow Wow, their attendance was up it was almost double what it was last year. So that event is just really so well received. They had more craft and food vendors. I think she said 10 or 12 additional vendors this year. And again, there's a lot of competition for these vendors, especially for them because November being Native American Heritage Month, there's a lot of powwows going on and a lot of competition, but for her to be able to grow second year, I thought was tremendous. She had vendors come from New York, New Jersey, and Minnesota. So, and she also had tribes come from all over the country. She had 3 tribes come from Midwest, one from New York, she had one from Virginia, South Carolina, and maybe Florida, in addition to a couple of North Carolina. So, great event for her. Her overnight stay, she's estimating for the 3 hotels that they partnered with, just those 3, she's estimating 100 room nights. And I do know the most positive comment that they got, and what I heard from people just milling about and talking to them, was they were just so thankful that this type of cultural event was something that was brought to our community. They're just really happy to be a part of it. So, on to Veterans Tribute. So we thought we'd show you, in case you weren't there, a couple of photos from the weekend. It was a really good weekend. We learned a lot. We know some things to do and things not to do next year, which is always the case. But Red, White, and Salute was successful. The media team here put together some photo ops for us. They did a great job designing those. The kids and the parents loved them. They had a great time with the touch of trucks. They love crawling all over those military vehicles. I did put in here the one of the pieces of art from the Veterans Art Exhibition. We surprisingly had some pretty good traffic there. I didn't know what to expect, honestly, but we did have, Noah hosted it and had some great traffic. There's some really incredible talent in this town. It's amazing, if you don't know. The laser light show that we're all looking forward to was a tremendous success. It was packed. People were lined up outside the ball fields, just sitting in their vehicles on the side of the road, just watching the light show. So that I feel like was a great investment that you guys made. Thank you for the audio tour, helping the audio tour finally come to fruition. This has been a mission of ours forever, and it came to be, we had it put together, got the signs out, so it was basically introduced that weekend and was very well received. So I personally want to thank you, because that is just, it really makes the stories come alive, and I just think it's a great addition to our community and to the gardens. The Walk of Honor is always a great tribute. The International Food Trail, remember we did that, and this is just a shot of the winner that she grabbed some girlfriends and they went on our International Food Trail, entered the contest, and had a great time with it on social media. So it was really fun to watch that. Our digital campaign, like Susan said, it did really, really well. We had put our message out in front of over 470,000 people. So that's a lot of impressions. The moral of the story, I feel like, snapshot, darn it. So I'll go ahead and say this one. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say this was Susan's favorite photo of the weekend. Susan attended, she was here with us all weekend. And if this doesn't say Susan Dozier, I don't know what does. It was great.
So fun.
So, my comment is to you as a board and to tourism as a whole for Jacksonville, is I feel like, we're on such a good path. We're doing such good things, and we are finally, I feel like we're coming to a point where we are, with everything we're doing, I know there's a lot of work and a lot of moving parts, but we are doing everything we can to get Jacksonville, North Carolina, its spot on the map, and I feel like it's beginning to happen. Upcoming events, we have this weekend is the last weekend for the Coastal Trout Series. The last tournament is this weekend. Ollie Temple's anniversary weekend is in January, and in February we have Jazz in the City and the Bridal Expo coming up. And that, my friends, is your marketing report. Anthony, did you have anything to add? I know you were around for Veterans Tribute. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Anything we missed, maybe?
I don't think that you missed anything, and thank you so much, Susan and Teresa, for everything that you've done to support all of these events and the exposure that you've brought to our great community. One thing I did want to mention to our directors is that from the outside looking in, prior to kind of stepping into this role, it wasn't 100% clear to me as to what Susan and Teresa, what their role was in this whole process. Now that we've been through all of these events, I can tell you that their role is immense, okay? And if we did not have them as part of our team, we wouldn't be doing all of this wonderful stuff, okay? This is the short version of what they've been doing, okay? And I hate to say it this way, but we get more value out of their work than we actually pay them for, in my opinion. They go beyond this just as a responsibility for a contract. They really care about every single one of these things, and they do an excellent job. If we can go back. Yep, that one right there. The other thing about it too is it's not just the work that they put into it, it's also the connections that they have with people throughout the state, people throughout the nation. You heard Susan talk about connecting nationally with ABC News and National Geographic. That's not something that I'm going to be able to do. That's not something that any of you are going to be able to do. That's why we bring her to the table, and she is more than capable of doing that. From Teresa's perspective here, you see this radio, $38,900. If you listen to the radio over the past month, you've heard a lot of commercials about Veterans Tribute and the Pow Wow and so on and so forth. So much so that I hadn't heard a Bob Mills commercial, and I can't tell you how long, okay? Yes, and I did say that on television, I'm sorry, but the thing about it is, we didn't pay that much money for that radio exposure. It was her relationship with the radio stations that got us that level of exposure and got us that much attention to these events. One thing she didn't mention to you is that they like the events and the relationship is so strong, they actually translated our advertisements into Spanish on their dime. And we're advertising on, what is the station?
La Pantera, the Spanish station that the group that our partners own. We were going to run it. They said, don't you want to be on the Spanish station? I said, well, I certainly do, but I just don't know if I want to, if we want to spend the money on the production, can you do it? And they were like, yeah, we can do that. So they put it on there as well. We invested $6,000.
That was the radio buy. Okay, so you see the multiplier there. I'm not strong enough to do that math in my head, but it's more than one, right? The point is, again, and I don't want to underemphasize this, they don't always get the front stage here, but they are the backbone of a lot of this work. And I certainly appreciate everything that they do, as well as our media friends that are hiding in the control room.
Yes, we couldn't do it without them, I'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, great job.
Yes,
Great
we are.
job. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, yeah, I guess it takes the new age social media where getting blown up's a good thing.
We need to change our verbiage, don't we?
All right, so here we are at the end of the meeting, open for director's comments. Go down the line, shaking heads. All right, good. Like that. Just want to say thanks again for everything. Here we coming up on the holiday season. Everybody have a great holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and we'll be back in just a couple of months. Of course, we'll be meeting individually to keep a pulse on things, but like Teresa said, it's getting exciting. It really is. It's moving right along. I sure appreciate all the hard work and everybody's dedication. With nothing else, I guess we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Bob?